Hello there. Well, in the wake of pensioners being betrayed by the removal of the winter fuel payment, Building Safety Minister Alex Morris lays his greed and hypocrisy open for all to see. Also, the petition calling for a general election is due to be debated on the 6th of January. But judging by some of the comments we've received, not everyone is happy about having the petition in the first place. Welcome to Grey Matters. Hello and welcome to Grey Matters, the channel that promotes the fact that the older generation still matters and has relevance, and which looks at issues that matter to the older generation. Before we start, the baseball cap competition ended last week and the winners were drawn. However, one of them, Bus Greaser, that's a great handle, Bus Greaser hasn't yet claimed his prize. So if you're watching this, Bus Greaser, just drop me an email at greymatters1950@gmail.com and we'll sort it out for you. If it's not claimed by the new year, then I'll redraw it. So back to the Building Safety Minister Alex Morris. He appeared on Good Morning Britain the other day to discuss issues around the Grenfell Tower fire 7 years ago. However, towards the end of the interview, Susannah Reid took the opportunity to challenge him about MPs' allowances for their second homes. Now, to me, his response was predictable, but I suspect he speaks for all those MPs who gleefully grab at every opportunity to milk the system, whatever the cost to us taxpayers and whatever the optics might be. Take a look.
You took the winter fuel allowance away from 10 million pensioners. You voted that through, didn't you, individually?
I did.
Yeah. That was a very difficult decision, particularly as it affects some pensioners whose income might be just £12,000, £13,000 a year, because, of course, the threshold is if you get pension credit. 10 million pensioners losing out. Do you still claim support for your energy bills?
Well, to answer that in two parts. First of all, those pensioners, as a result of the triple lock in recent years, have seen significant increases in their income. The pensioners who need pension credit will get that. And we, as I talk to my constituents and you will talk to viewers, people need to sign up for that and go through that process. If they fall just over that cliff edge, as you mentioned, there's support through the Household Support Fund to smooth that off. So, we're very clear that the support will be there for pensioners who need it this winter.
Yeah, not for the whole of the 10 million and still on a very low income. The second part of my question, of course, you're going to answer was, do you still claim support for your energy costs?
I pay my bills for my energy costs at home. And like anybody else who works away, my employer meets the costs of working and living away from home. That's an independently set process.
OK, but that's public money.
Indeed, and it's a matter of public record. But like anybody, again, people watching perhaps in wherever they're staying as they're working away from home this week, we're in the same situations as they would be.
But as an MP, you earn, am I right, £91,000 plus your ministerial salary of around £30,000. Wouldn't the better difficult decision be to take away heating allowance from MPs who can afford to pay it than from pensioners on £12,000, £13,000 a year?
Well, I think that, the way in which employment's treated should be consistent irrespective of the job that you do. And as I say, it would be routine, as it would be for yourself, as it would be for me, for those costs to be met.
Shouldn't public money be spent on those who can least afford it rather than those who can most afford it?
Well, indeed, and that I think you will have seen was a real feature of our budget. If you look at who the budget has impacted the most and who's had, the best impact from the budget has been those people with the least who have benefited from it. It was a thoroughly Labour budget in that regard. So I completely agree with that, and I would completely say that that's what we've done.
Do you not have any qualms when you say it was a difficult decision to take up to £300 away from pensioners on low incomes when you are a highly paid MP and minister who still claims public money for your energy bills?
Well, I believe that the decision we took was the right one. We protected the poorest pensioners. We know that for those who wouldn't be eligible, they could claim into the household support fund.
Okay,
for those
so
who
you
aren't
don't have any qualms about that?
Well, similarly, because the alternative is that you're basically saying that perhaps in the future, because it's not just bill costs, it's also residential costs, isn't it? That eventually you either have to live in London already, or you couldn't be a member of Parliament, or you have to have independently wealthy. All I ask is that we're treated the same as the rest of the population. I think that's reasonable. And as I say, it's all independently set anyway. Okay. So frankly, I don't have agency in it.
All right. Alex Norris, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this morning.
Well said, Susannah. She said exactly what many of us have been saying since the winter fuel payment debacle was announced. And he's saying, because it's his right to claim his heating allowance from the taxpayer, he's going to exercise that right come what may. Well, of course, he's quite entitled to do that, and many will be arguing that in the comments, I'm sure. But you know, there are many people on benefits who claim for everything they can. Understandably, they're entitled to do so. And as a result, many more of them have more disposable income than people who are not on benefits. And when that's seen by pensioners who have worked hard and saved as best they can all their lives, they understandably feel a bit aggrieved. But you can't deny someone benefits on the basis that they'll be better off than someone who's not on benefits. And it would be impossible to measure anyway. And I know that's kind of an extreme example, but I'm sure you get the gist. Now, one of the government's arguments for cancelling the winter fuel payment was that many of the 10 million pensioners who were receiving it didn't need it, because their incomes were significantly higher than those who did. But as we know, it's not just those on benefits who need it. There are millions who are above the benefit threshold but who still need the payment. Well, as we've heard, at a salary of around £120,000 a year, I mean, he and all the other MP leeches from all parties can certainly afford to pay their own energy bills, both on their homes and on their luxury London abodes so desperately needed to fulfil their functions as MPs. You know, it strikes me that staying over at the Westminster Travelodge or Premier Inn a couple of days a week will be far more cost effective overall and easier on the public purse. But of course, not so lucrative for them. These MPs, in my opinion, are just plain greedy, and worse, they're hypocrites, voting to remove the winter fuel payment, as he said so proudly in that interview, from pensioners on one hand, while greedily stuffing their noses in the expenses trough at every opportunity. I'd love to know your thoughts about this, and Alex Morris's response in particular. Now, when we come back, we're going to respond to the negative comments we've received about the election petition. So we'll see you in just a second after you've hit that skip button. See you soon. Hello and welcome back. You know, with virtually 3 million signatures, Michael Westwood's petition is due to be heard on the 6th of January. But as I said in the introduction, not everybody is happy about it. Amongst the hundreds of comments on this channel, there were many who were scathing about the whole thing. Many were saying that just because we don't like the election result, it's no reason to want a rerun. Others made the comparison with Brexit, stating that the second referendum was refused based on the fact it was a democratic decision that was made to leave the Union. But you know, there's a huge difference between those two examples and what is happening now. Quite rightly, a second Brexit referendum was rejected as it flew in the face of that democratic result. But as for the election petition, no one is suggesting it's because they didn't like the result of the election. It doesn't matter which way people voted in the general election, most accepted the result, even if they weren't happy about it. So the petition is nothing to do with the fact that Labour won, and with a massive majority. The issue is with their performance. Now, When I said this in reply to one critical comment, I was told in no uncertain terms that it's ridiculous to try and judge a new government's performance after such a short time. And normally I'd agree. However, in the case of this government, their achievements in such a short space of time have been truly monumental. Or monumentally bad, that is. On one hand, they won the election with the biggest majority in modern history, and on the other, they have made more catastrophic decisions in a short space of time than any other government in modern history. If we wait to judge them, it could be too late, and there could be nothing left to judge. According to YouGov, who wanted to find out what people thought was the best thing Labour had done, the mood towards the government was so negative, it was perhaps not surprising that many weren't able or willing to credit them with any specific achievement. For 43% of Britons, Labour hadn't done anything in their first 100 days worthy of being described as the best thing. It's amazing. I mean, obviously, much of this discontent came from supporters of the other parties, but notably, this is also the most common sentiment among those who backed Labour in the election, with more than 1 in 5 voters, and more recently 1 in 4, also of the view that the government had not made a single positive improvement. And I've lost count of the comments we've got on this channel where people have said, I voted Labour, or I'm a lifelong Labour voter, but never again, going by what's been happening. So let's look at some of the examples of their failings as identified by YouGov. Hitting farmers with inheritance tax. Almost every farm, even the very small ones, will cross the tax threshold on the value of machinery and land alone. And in many, if not most cases, the beneficiaries will have to sell the farms simply to pay the tax. In one fell swoop, they put the future of British farming on a knife edge. Then there was the freebie scandal, with Starmer and his wife accepting thousands of pounds worth of presents. Ill-judged, badly timed, and was responsible for a massive drop in his approval rating. Then what was next? Oh yes, obviously hitting pensioners and the poor. Well, okay, enough said about that. We've discussed that one well and truly over the months. They've also reneged on every election promise, especially no raising of taxes and NI, because Rachel Thieves just went on to increase NI for employers, and that will have a knock-on effect for employees with lower wage rises or none at all, and reductions or no bonuses at all. Of course, they started with huge pay rises for their public sector cronies and union paymasters, with civil servants, doctors and train drivers being lavished with inflation-busting pay increases to avoid strikes. But I think perhaps the most disturbing policy that has been identified by YouGov was the early release of violent and high-risk prisoners, whilst imprisoning other people for their opinions. Then of course we had one of the big ones, immigration. Labour's promise to tackle the people smugglers and crack down on illegal immigration has failed to materialise completely. Everyone knows that the majority of illegal migrants are economic migrants coming here to take advantage of our weak borders and reap the benefits so freely handed out to them. And channel crossings, as I'm sure you know, have hit 20,000 since Labour entered office. That's a phenomenal number. And then we have to speak, I guess, about the anti-Trump rhetoric from Lammy and others, which has soured the incoming president's desire to stay close to the UK. Now, love him or hate him, Trump has always been fiercely pro-Britain. But the government appears to have badly affected that relationship, and we need good relationships with the US, whether we like it or not. When it comes to the economy, since the budget, the OBR has downgraded our growth prospects, and is predicting higher inflation and interest rates. According to statistics, the UK's growth since Labour came to power has dropped from 0.5% to 0.1%. You know, the sad thing is, and this wasn't picked up by YouGov, but this government is now a laughingstock around the world. At a recent foreign summit, whereas other world leaders had a warm reception upon arrival, Starmer arrived to find virtually no one there to greet him. This petition is all about the government's performance and the optics around their decisions and behaviour. It's nothing to do with sour grapes or being peed off about the election result. This government is actually harming Britain at home and on the world stage, and something has to be done before we lose all credibility. And we have to go cap in hand, God forbid, to our allies for a bailout if the economy tanks. However, you know, we all know that the debate on the 6th of Jan won't achieve anything. Starmer, Reeves and Rayner will simply respond to all the arguments raised by blaming the last government, blaming the so-called black hole, and turn all the accusations back on the other parties. Nothing will be their fault, and, as is a politician's way, there will be no straight answers to any of the questions. Let's wait and see. I think it'll be a very interesting debate, and I certainly am looking forward to seeing it. Well guys, this will be the last edition of Grey Matters this side of Christmas, and I do need to thank you all very much for an amazing year here on the channel. Since July, your subscriptions have rocketed from around 500 to just short of 19,000. The channel has been viewed 1.5 million times, so we really do appreciate your support. As always, your comments are welcomed, and we do try to read every one. And if you've not yet subscribed, well, maybe you can help us get to our next milestone of 20,000, which is so close. In the meantime, let us know what you think about today's content. Have a fantastic Christmas, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time on Grey Matters. Bye for now.